I want to transition to college football in a move that I think shocked everyone yesterday. Just a bombshell of a notification that Lincoln Riley is leaving Oklahoma to become the next head coach at USC. Somehow the Trojans found a way to get it done, and they wooed and they whisked Lincoln Riley away from Oklahoma, and they announced it yesterday. With the regular season obviously over, Oklahoma lost to Oklahoma State, pretty much knocking their college football playoff hopes out of contention. This announcement was made. And this is groundbreaking news in college football, because this is a guy in Lincoln Riley who had just wrapped up 5 seasons at Oklahoma. Obviously, he still had a bowl game left to play, but he wrapped up 5 seasons at Oklahoma in which he had a 55-10 record, 37-7 in the Big 12. This is a guy that has never lost more than 2 games in a year at Oklahoma. He was the succession plan to Bob Stoops. He took over as a successor in 2017. And he's really carried the mantle at just 38 years of age. This is a guy that won 10, that was 10-2 in his first 3 years, including 3 straight trips to the college football playoff, and then followed it up with a 9-2 season. And now this year he's 10-2, and not to mention he's won the Big 12 championship 4 times. So he was actually not 10-2. He was 12-2, 12-2, 12-2, then 9-2, and now this year 10-2. So I don't think, first of all, that anyone thought that this was actually a possibility. I certainly didn't, but obviously a move like this doesn't happen overnight. The wheels were put in motion probably months ago, likely right after Clay Helton was fired as the head coach. I'm sure they probably had some kind of discreet contact with and covert contact with his agent. Now, it didn't seem like Oklahoma necessarily was blindsided by the move, given how they've reacted. Not going to delve into that, but I will say that this is shocking on a number of reasons, because this is a guy in Lincoln Riley who clearly just was like stolen by a thief in the middle of the night. Yeah, just somehow wooed and whisked away by the Southern California breeze, by the aura surrounding USC and their brand. And there were always rumors throughout the year about Lincoln Riley potentially to USC, potentially to LSU. He publicly shut those down, or at least publicly dismissed the USC or the LSU head coaching rumors. I guess he didn't technically shut down the USC rumors at all. But what this says is it's not a financial issue. This was not a financial-driven reason to leave for Lincoln Riley, because he's making $6.5 million this year, and I'm sure that Oklahoma would have been willing to pay him whatever it is that USC was willing to pay him. This is about USC and the fact that they were willing to say, hey, you know what? The boosters were impatient. They were intolerant of mediocrity and losing. And they said, hey, Mike Bone, we need you to convince Lincoln Riley to come here, and we'll support you and we'll back you by whatever financial means necessary to get the job done. It all came down to the boosters. Mike Bone approached the boosters likely, or the boosters approached him and said, hey, listen, I think I can get Lincoln Riley. Do I have the financial support from you guys? The answer is obviously yes. And this is a guy in Lincoln Riley who, again, has just been an offensive guru, an offensive wizard, has always had one of the top offenses in college football. He, of course, was a student assistant. He was a former quarterback at Texas Tech. Actually was the 3rd string, funny enough, to Cliff Kingsbury, who's now is apparently the next target for a potential head coach for Oklahoma, because he's got 1 more year remaining on his contract with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I doubt he's going to leave the Cardinals right now, but that's a different point and a different discussion. But after Texas Tech, he was a student assistant under Mike Leach for a couple years. So obviously the background and the offensive background of Mike Leach has rubbed off on him. He was an offensive coordinator at East Carolina, then an offensive coordinator under Bob Stoops for several years. So he has this kind of moniker as the quarterback whisperer and a quarterback extraordinaire. That he has a way with making them play a lot bigger and just look a lot better than perhaps they were. Especially Jalen Hurts, we saw how he erupted under this guy's tutelage. But this is a huge, huge win for USC and their program because this is not only a young but elite quarterback coach, an elite head coach, an elite recruiter in college football, and a genius offensively. This is an electric and a flashy signing, but it works. And now you have an opportunity in Lincoln Riley to once again reestablish the nobility and kind of resuscitate a once prestigious college football brand in USC. And it will allow him to establish a footprint in Southern California as it relates to recruiting, because USC is a sleeping giant when it comes to recruiting. They've got an entire coast practically to themselves that's untapped right now. UCLA hasn't been able to dominate. Right now, it's been Oregon that's been dominating the Southern California recruiting trails, along with other schools, of course, that have been kind of infringing and encroaching on that territory, Alabama, Clemson. But this is a big name coach, and that's the big thing is, okay, you had John McKay, John Robinson, Pete Carroll, and USC was quite frankly done with the low-profile names. I know that Dave Aranda was thrown out, the head coach at Baylor, even though he was only there for 1 year. USC has been there and done that with the low-profile guys. They did it with Clay Helton. They've done it with unproven head coaching commodities in Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. And the bottom line is they said, if we're not going to dip our toes into the NFL waters, then if we're going to stick to college football, we're going to have to attract and get a big-time college football name. And Lincoln Riley is about as big as they come as it relates to I guess, head coaches that were potentially on the market. He's about as big as it comes. And he's going to do wonders for this USC program to resuscitate them. And not only, again, will he be able to establish a recruiting footprint in the region, but it's just going to be a nightmare now for other schools in the Pac-12 to be able to compete, I think, with USC. I mean, I think that Oregon has done a really nice job carving out a niche for them. But again, we just know that we knew that the boosters were not just going to sit around at USC and say, okay, they're going to accept this abysmal season and really this mediocrity for several years. That just wasn't going to happen, because they've kind of looked deplorable at stretches during this year. Obviously got shellacked by UCLA, which selfishly I was happy to see. And they're going to make him probably the highest paid college football coach in the nation, if not the highest paid, a top 3 college football coach when it comes to salary. So, but again, financially, I don't think that was the reason behind Lincoln Riley's decision to leave. It was likely just, hey, this is a new opportunity to embark on a new challenge with a program that, quite frankly, probably has a slightly richer history than Oklahoma, which is really hard to do. Oklahoma is a prestigious program, and I might get pushback on that last statement. It could be Oklahoma's a bigger program. I'm not sure. Maybe they're about even when it comes to kind of the brand awareness for both of those two programs in football. I mean, this is a huge, huge deal for USC and for college football. I don't think people understand, and it's surprising, especially given the fact that Oklahoma is projected to move to the SEC, so you thought maybe that would be an enticing piece. But, wow, Lincoln Riley to USC. We did not see that one coming. Clearly didn't just happen overnight, but wow, just blindsided. And his entire staff is coming to USC with him. Entire staff is coming to USC with him. They're going to establish another powerhouse at USC. Major coup for the Trojans. Wow.